of all, I'm very honored to be able to interview her because she is a marketer that not only does things to help her company, but she does so many things to help the community. And, you know, a lot of people know JP Morgan Chase is this giant behemoth financial institution, but there's a lot going on that JP Morgan Chase does to educate people, to help people. And that's kind of where Lois sits, sort of at the intersection of celebrity and education and cause. So it's my pleasure to have Lois. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Leonard. I'm honored to be being interviewed by you after our conversation the other day. I was enamored with your career and how much you've accomplished. So mutual respect, which is always wonderful.
Well, thank you. Could you just sort of start out by explaining a little bit to people about what JP Morgan Chase does? Because we all know it as this big behemoth financial institution, but what in fact does the company do to serve the community and also to serve people in general?
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I mean, I am so proud to work for JP Morgan Chase. We have a global philanthropy group which gives about $200 million a year to nonprofit organizations around the world. But beyond that, we have a handful of I would say, incredibly important initiatives. A Women on the Move initiative, an Advancing Black Pathways initiative, which was founded and started a year and a half ago, and a very major military and vet initiative. And I think that with Jamie Dimon at the helm, our whole premise of how we operate is we go deep into a community, community first, business second. And I really say that with the utmost honesty, that I've seen it time and time again in the 9 years that I've been at JP Morgan Chase, that we really, really care about our communities, where we live, where we work, where we have businesses. We're in 44 states. We're in 122 countries around the world. And I'm really, really honored and proud to have the job that I have, which is to create partnerships with individuals that are mutually beneficial for both JP Morgan Chase and the individual.
That's a great answer. And I want to talk about your journey at JP Morgan Chase. You started out in philanthropy with the great Kristen Lemkow, former CMO of JP Morgan Chase, and now CEO of the private wealth division, which means she rubs elbows with a lot of rich people. And you started in philanthropy, but now you are head of corporate partner marketing. And as I said, you're at the intersection of celebrity, education, and cause. So talk about your journey a little bit.
If you don't mind me just regressing a little bit to just sort of give a framework of JP Morgan Chase at large. So JP Morgan is our global brand. It is the brand that has our private wealth management. It is all of our commercial banking clients. It's all of our investment banking. It's all of how money moves around the world, treasury and services. Chase is United States, domestic. It's the retail footprint, the credit cards, the mortgages, the auto payments, and anything that deals with the United States. So I sit in JP Morgan Chase and Co., and cross to all JP Morgan lines of business and all Chase lines of business, which is about, I'd say, 20 different lines of business. And I started in global philanthropy, which is also part of JP Morgan Chase and Co. At that time, Kristen was the chief communications officer for Chase. And I was in charge of strategic community partnerships. Our philanthropy structure at that time was what I call a place-based strategy, where we would go like deep into New Orleans, and Katrina happened, and we knew that we had to help New Orleans overcome Katrina and some of the really, down and trodden areas and help rebuild them with housing, versus a Chicago, which has its own systemic problems with education, versus a San Francisco, where the homeless problem just is so significant and there's so many youth that are homeless. So Kristen and I kind of created this magic sauce where we would go in and we'd give philanthropic dollars, we'd engage our employees in volunteer activities, and we would maybe be lucky enough to find a celebrity that would was passionate about what we were doing. And then all of a of a sudden publicity started, and we were really able, this is back in the early 2010s, 2011s, to be known as a brand that cared about communities. So that was what I did when I was in philanthropy. Then when Kristen got the incredible promotion of being the CMO of all of JP Morgan Chase, she asked me if I'd want to come and join her on the marketing team, which I did. And between her and myself and a colleague who unfortunately passed away, Jimmy Lee, we created this corporate partner marketing group.
Wow, that's a great story. And I'm glad you took the time to share that with us. It's so interesting. You know, I was talking to you yesterday and I was fascinated about how you take important events in culture like the US Open Tennis Tournament or the Super Bowl, and then you wrap programs around those that benefit the community, but also help you from a marketing perspective. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Well, we did talk about the Super Bowl, which was, one of the Super Bowls that I worked at, which was the 2013 Super Bowl, which was in New Orleans. And the other thing I really have to say I respect about JP Morgan Chase is that our leadership does believe in trying things, testing and learning, falling on your face, learning from mistakes, and maybe sometimes not going forward with things that don't work out with the best results or KPIs that we would want them to. And I think, Leonard, you and I spoke about the 2013 Super Bowl, in which it was New Orleans. They had asked me, could I create some kind of opportunity for client engagement in New Orleans around the Super Bowl that would be unique, because 2014 was going to be in New York. And we knew that New York would be a very saturated, popular place with lots of activations. How could we differentiate our brand? So in 2013, I had the fortune of meeting Steve Gleason. For those of you who don't know him, a former football player for the New Orleans Saints who was diagnosed with ALS at the age of 33. He's now in his young 40s. He is living with ALS. He cannot move anything except for his eyes. He is the poster child and actually just got a Congressional Medal of Honor at the Capitol pre-COVID in January for his contributions to technology for disabled people. So anyway, I'd met Steve. Steve is an icon in New Orleans, icon in the world now. And we activated a lot of really interesting events around Steve in the 2013 Super Bowl. But we didn't feel like it yielded us the results that we would have wanted. So we didn't move forward with that same kind of strategy in 2014. But what we do try to do is really figure out with partners, people of influence. They are not endorsed by our brand. What is their passion point? What matters to them? And how can there be a mutually beneficial opportunity for us to engage with them to help them and then in turn help us?
Yeah, I mean, everything you said leads me to believe and others to believe that JP Morgan is really a purpose-driven company, and it seems like that. And I have so much respect for you and what you do, because you do so many things that help people and look at situations where you can step in and make people's lives better or make the community better in a certain way, shape, or form. So congratulations for that. And this is a time of social unrest, as you know. I mean, my goodness, every day we're reading something different in the news. We see what's happened in the last few days. And I know that JP Morgan Chase has made a big commitment to the Black community. Maybe you could talk a little bit about what your position is on that and what you're doing to make the world a better place in that regard.
Yeah, so Sekou Colland is the head of the Advancing Black Pathways Initiative. Sekou is a great colleague, great friend. I think back, I'm just going to try to get this right. In 2018, he came from the investment bank. Him and Jamie Dimon had a really interesting conversation about the disparity between Black Americans and white Americans in terms of income, which I think we've been seeing a lot of on social media, in terms of home ownership, in terms of banking. And we saw this as an opportunity that not only could we maybe be helpful with financial education and resources to the Black community, but also an opportunity to really hit this head on. So, I know that Black Lives Matter has been around for a long time, and even Colin Kaepernick, what was that, 4 years ago that he started his kneeling movement. So I'm not saying that we were like ahead of the curve, but in 2018, Jamie and the other operating committee leadership decided that if we were going to do something, we weren't going to skirt around the issue. We were going to call it Advancing Black Pathways. And I think that was really, really bold. And we announced it in February of 2019. With that, we are giving a enormous amount of grants to Black organizations. Our pillars for that is not only helping people with their financial education, helping Black businesses grow, and also helping the housing and community supports that the Black population sometimes, faces with a disparity. We started this in Detroit. We called it the Entrepreneurship of Color Fund. This was back in 2015, 2016, when JP Morgan Chase announced $100 million to try to revitalize the city of Detroit. We lent 44 Black men and women loans to start their businesses. These were loans that these people never would have gotten if they went through a traditional credit process because they didn't qualify for XYZ reasons. 43 of them are still operating and have paid back every single penny of that they were given, which to me is just like, it gives me the chills to even think about it. So we do have a huge philanthropic contribution to Black communities right now. We also have just created, and I don't know, Leonard, if you and I spoke about this the other day, but community branches. Our first one was in Harlem. Our next one is going into Minneapolis, I think later this month, and it's about 2 blocks away from where George Floyd was murdered. And then we're doing Chicago, Detroit, and Akron, Ohio, where LeBron has his I Promise school right down the street. So we have, and then there's a whole array of additional community branches that we'll be announcing. And what these community branches are doing is directly related to the Black and Brown population in the United States. And it's everything that I said: education, home, housing supports, and business loans.
Well, that's so heartening to hear what you're doing, because, there's a lot of now attention on the issue and the problem, but, I like to get from the point of talking to the point of doing, and you're actually doing things. And, there's sort of, in my mind, there's like 3 things that have to happen. One, you have to identify where systemic racism is occurring and root it out. Number 2, you have to actually engage in programs which are going to bring people up, because a lot of this is based on economic disparity. And then, of course, there's the education aspect, where you got to teach people at a young age, about equality and inclusion and all the things that are important, the kinds of core values you want people to grow up with. So, my hat's off to you and JP Morgan Chase for actually doing something as opposed to just talking about it.
Yeah, you spurred me to think of, we have a program called the Fellowship Initiative, which started in New York City 10 years ago. And what we did was we took young men of color at the end of 8th grade that were getting grades that were in the CD range, but their test scores showed that they had much higher aptitude. And we put them into a program called the Fellowship Initiative and had a cohort of about 30 of them, mentored by JP Morgan Chase employees, Saturday school by JP Morgan Chase employees. And the first class, which graduated, I want to say in 2012, 2013, every single one of them got a ride. A scholarship, free ride to schools all over the country. One went to Harvard, one went to Brown, and we've just continued to grow that program. And we now have cohorts of the Fellowship Initiative in LA, Chicago, and New York, and are looking to expand that program as well. So, I think that just is a testimony to mentorship, which we really strongly believe in, employee volunteerism, and, as you said, starting youth on proper pathways.
That's wonderful. And it reminds me of a story you told me yesterday, which I'd love for you to, tell everybody out there. And that's how you use celebrity, like somebody like Victor Cruz, in a way that has helped a really cool business, Kith, grow. So tell that story, because I think people would love to hear that.
Well, Victor Cruz, I love him. He's just such a good guy. I met Victor Cruz. I don't know if everybody knows who he is. Super Bowl champion, played for the New York Giants, had a breakout season, had a lifetime of overcoming adversity, was not drafted, and had to walk on to the Giants, made it. Father and grandfather died within 2 weeks of each other while he was in college, just like one thing after another. But anyway, the how I met Vic was in his breakout season at the Giants, pre-breaking out. Judy Diamond, our CEO's wife, was the co-chair of an event for Ballet Hispanico, which taught Latino children first step dance lessons. And she said, I'm sick and tired of having this like huge gala, and I get the Adelante, our business resource group membership, to come, but I never get any of the white executives to show up. How am I going to do that? And I said, what about that guy who just salsa danced on the Giants, like when he scored a touchdown? So this is a true story. Like, stories are amazing. So Judy says to me, I actually know Lori Tisch, who Tisch family is part ownership of the Giants. Let's call Lori and see if we could get to Victor. This is back in 2011. So Lori gets us Victor Cruz's cell phone number. I call Victor Cruz. I'm like, hi, this is Lois from JP Morgan Chase. Would you want to come to this Ballet Hispanico event? Anyway, the Ballet Hispanico event was in March, and the Super Bowl was in February, and the Giants won that year. So you can imagine what executives came to the Ballet Hispanico.
All of them.
Anyway, Vic is a very philanthropic guy from Paterson, New Jersey, cares a lot about kids, cares a lot about youth with science, technology, engineering, and math, the STEM programs. And we helped support his foundation, got him started with a number of things. And in turn, some of my colleagues and I would go to Giant games. And at one of the Giant games, I met Ronnie Feig, who is the CEO of Kith. And Ronnie was talking with me about his need for business banking, how he was a growing brand. And Kith back in that day was not the Kith that we know today, that has treats and stores globally all over the world. And we were able to help set Ronnie up with, some really strategic bankers who helped him grow his brand, go international. We sponsored a fashion show of his as his financial partner. And it's just like, to me, when worlds collide, it's just wonderful when there's authentic connections. So I always thank Vic for introducing us to Ronnie. Ronnie thanks me for introducing him to Vic. It's like this triage of people.
It's perfect. It's perfect. And, I talked a little bit earlier about how you're sort of at the intersection of celebrity and educating the public. And I know you're proud of your relationship with LeBron James and Maverick Carter. So I bet people would love to hear about how you work to create the concept of kneading dough with the Uninterrupted platform and the kinds of things you've done there.
Well, first, I think that what underlies the story that I'm going to tell is the bench strength of JP Morgan Chase. And, back to our commitment to community and commitment to not-for-profit organizations. So, anything that I do with people as partners, whether they're an athlete, a celebrity, a thought leader, or a business leader, there's typically no dollars involved, which I think most people just go, what? How does that work? And if there are dollars involved, they usually go to the philanthropic organization, never to the individual. So we do have endorsed celebrity spokespeople, as I'm sure many people have seen: Serena, Steph Curry, Kevin, and Lindsey Vonn, and they do get dollars from JP Morgan Chase to talk about our brand. But that's not what I do. I work with people and try to figure out authentic connections. So LeBron James Family Foundation, LeBron started for the first time he was in Cleveland, before he went to Miami. And our employees who work in Cleveland and Columbus and the Akron community would help support LeBron with what we call his one and dones, his cleanup of community homes, his one-time events. And LeBron's whole premise of LeBron James Family Foundation is that he took a kid in Akron that was identified by the public school system as not reading at grade level at the end of second grade. And the reason why is that if a kid goes into third grade, not reading at grade level, there's like an 82% chance that they're going to drop out of high school in these kinds of communities, because they don't get the supports to ever catch up. So we would work with mentorship with the LeBron James Family Foundation. Long story short, he went to Miami. He was hated by everybody. Our brand stuck with him, because nobody liked the way he did his big announcement. And then he came back to Cleveland, and Cleveland was ready to embrace him again. And Cedar Point Amusement Park, in Sandusky, Ohio, offered LeBron a one day in August every year to take his people who are part of his foundation, the constituents, not his Foundation workers to Sandusky to have a day at an amusement park, and I sponsored that. Through that sponsorship, got to know LeBron, and not for big money, for very little money. Got to know LeBron, got to know Maverick Carter, and introduced the LeBron James Family Foundation to our Force for Good team at JP Morgan Chase. We have 50,000 techies around the globe, and one of the ways that we have to fight for tech talent the same way that every big tech company does, and one of the ways that we try to helpfully retain them is by offering them philanthropic opportunities. So we put a team of about 60 techies from the Columbus, Ohio area on a project right when LeBron announced that he was going to pay for any kid who went through his program and pay full rides to a scholarship at the University of Akron. He had no way to track them. So we started working with him and his foundation, and we actually coded the solution to give him the solution to have a database to track these kids. Through that relationship, you can only imagine how much more I learned about the LeBron James Family Foundation. And one of the things that came out loud and clear was the need for financial education. And in a brainstorm with Maverick Carter, I said, let's try an experiment. What if we were to get athletes talking about their journey with money? And maybe then kids would listen, maybe adults would listen. And there was a lot of like pushback and conversation at the firm being JP Morgan Chase, about would this resonate with the mass consumer? Would a everyday person who makes $50,000 a year and has 2 kids, would they care about what LeBron James or Serena Williams, who make multi-millions of dollars, say? And in fact, we did a pilot show with Kneading Dough. My kids think I'm so cool. The Jay-Z lyrics, high school graduate, straight to the league. Yesterday I was kneading dough. Now I'm kneading my dough. That they did the program Kneading Dough. And we had 5 incredible athletes speak their financial mistakes, how they learned about money, what they were taught about savings. And it went crazy. It went viral. We had over 1 billion earned media impressions in year 1, and we've continued the program. And it really is a huge basis and premise for the financial health education that we are systemically trying to get out to all Americans right now.
Wow. I mean, and you're still, I mean, I noticed watching the program that JP Morgan Chase is a sponsor.
The only sponsor. It's,
yeah, you're the only sponsor.
We, I mean, to get to marketing terms, they own the intellectual capital of it, but it's a partnership. It's us and them. We meet with them probably 4 times a week, and I would say it's half my job is kneading dough, figuring out kneading dough, how we get it out to people, the social media strategy, the athletes that we interview, who we work with, how we engage them in future opportunities at the firm. I mean, that's really what I do. It's like I meet somebody, I understand their passion points. Lindsey Vonn, entrepreneurship, small business, Serena, women and babies now. It's like there's so many things that we do with these people that, as I said, it's not endorsement about a product or a service. But I'm so excited because we have Layla Ali as our first interview of this year. And she is going to be speaking about what she learned from her father, Muhammad Ali, about money, her first jobs. And then that's on October 22nd on chase.com, YouTube. Also, I'll give a little plug there. And then also what she's teaching her 5 children. So we're really excited for our work with Kneading Dough.
Oh, very cool. And, so I want to talk just for a moment about the pandemic and the way it sort of accelerated change and made us morph. I mean, we're having this conversation virtually now, whereas in the past, brand innovators would have had it in a room and we'd be sitting together in person. And I know that you at JP Morgan Chase has had to make some adjustments as well. You don't have the same kind of physical events as you had. So what kinds of things have you done? What kinds of challenges have you faced? And what kind of adjustments have you made, Lois?
Well, I mean, I think I could speak for the entire firm. We've made, some really huge adjustments. We are an event-driven company, meaning that every single line of business, I think, strongly believed in bringing people together, using our breadth and depth in our relationships in business at conferences to introduce our clients to people and have the opportunity to learn from, a massive number of people in all different ways. in particular, the kneading dough work. When we started planning season 4, which is 2020, we kind of took a different turn from the past 3 seasons of just recording interviews with these top athletes, and we were going to utilize our sports and entertainment properties like the Chase Center in San Francisco and Madison Square Garden in New York and Radio City Music Hall to host really big, explosive, dynamic events in which we could talk about our community work in those areas, as well as have like a top superstar athlete. And Scout's honor, our first choice was to do something at the LA Forum with Kobe Bryant.
Oh, wow.
Pre his passing. That was the kind of event that we were thinking of doing, where we would be able to gather influencers and mass consumers and obviously not charge them, but thus just be able to talk about financial health. So when COVID hit, which hit pretty suddenly in New York, I just remember it was like 1 week time frame where it was like, oh, lots of people were wearing masks on the subway, and then boom, March 15th, we were closed. We first went through a lot of iterations, and I'm sure many of our colleagues on this call listening, where we started like contingency planning. Oh, we'll be back by May, so we'll do this, da da da. Oh, maybe it'll be June, and then finally we said no more contingency plans. We are just moving to a virtual format. So I am working with the retail team, which has a program called Chase Chats, which had also started out as an in-person event in branches to make our branches be known more as advice centers. And Kneading Dough is going to be featured on the Chase Chat once a month, starting in October, and going to our 96 million mass consumers across America for them to watch, and anybody else can watch it too. It's free.
Wow. I mean, you may have already answered this, but in my mind, you are a miracle worker because, you, Lois, get all these famous people to do things for nothing. That's incredible. And I used to manage famous people, so I know how hard it is to get them to do things for nothing. You have to appeal to their heart as you do. And that's a tremendous, tremendous skill set. So congratulations for that. And what I think people would love to know is, what do you view as your most successful program? What are you most proud of?
My most successful program, I would say, I hate to keep going back to LeBron, but I need to use somebody else besides LeBron. I mean, I have to say what LeBron James is doing in Akron, Ohio with the I Promise School is truly extraordinary. I mean, there will be a documentary coming out on it. And why I say that, it's not just a school. It is a pantry for people to have housing. He just did a partnership with the Graduate Hotels so that there's 2 aspects of it. One is affordable housing for families in Akron. The other is trauma-based free housing for families in trauma. He has what I call a collective impact model of supports for these families in Akron. And just say, when I say like working with LeBron, getting a community branch, which will open in first quarter of 2021 in his own community, that was a huge feat because Akron is not a big city and we usually do things big in big cities. So that I'm very proud of. But I have to say that, some of the other work that I've done is more with people like a Petra Nemkova. This is like sort of a unknown secret about our firm. So anytime that there's a natural disaster, and we're seeing it right now in Louisiana, again with Hurricane Laura, we give hundreds of thousands of dollars for disaster recovery. Petra Nemkova was a supermodel, if you guys remember, who was in the tsunami 11 years ago. She hung on a palm tree for 11 hours. Her fiance was washed away. And Petra is now working with All Hands, All Hearts, which is her foundation, in which people from all over the world can do volunteer projects and have sustained disaster recovery. So the Force for Good program, the Techie program that I was telling you about earlier, we worked with Petra and really systematized how volunteers could go out, how projects could be assessed, and that's on a global level. So I'm proud of things like that. I'm proud of working with Deepak Chopra and thinking about mindfulness and how we could, work with him to get wellness to be broader than just, your 10,000 steps a day, and how your mind and soul really matter. I'm proud of the work we've done with Steve Gleason and how he's been able to help inform our chief technology officer about how to develop better products for the disabled population. I mean, I think that the key here is that every single person that I work with, I really, really try to find what their passion points are and what their deep interests are. And then my job, the other half of my job, is internal at the firm, working with every CMO, understanding every campaign, understanding all of our initiatives. And, you know, we're 250,000 people. We're as big as a small country at JP Morgan Chase. And I always say, if I can't, in my mind, connect the dots and try to find a way to help any of these, you know, influencers out there that are doing their magical miracle work in the world with their platform, then, you know, I'm not successful at my job. That's the way I measure myself, in addition to all KPIs of impressions and views and likes and call to actions. But yeah, that's just how I think about it. So I appreciate your compliments, but it's really these people who have marvelous platforms that are doing God's work.
Well, you know, obviously the things that you do, nobody can argue with. They're designed to help people in need. And we talked about JP Morgan being, and JP Morgan Chase being a purpose-driven organization. And we've seen companies now take a different approach to marketing. You know, we have all of these challenges out there in the world, and brands are now being called upon to take a stand on social issues. So you're a brand that appeals to most people, to everybody. You're a mass reach brand. So how do you navigate the waters of being a purpose-driven brand, but at the same time, not alienating certain aspects of your customer base?
Well, we never go political. You know, I guess that's lesson number one. I think that we have a new head of diversity.
You don't do it what LeBron does and says, "Who cares about Donald Trump? I don't want him to watch my games anymore."
We don't do that. We don't do that. No, I mean, you know, we have a government relations group and corporate responsibility group led by Peter Shearer. He's amazing. I think, you know, we get informed on every policy that's coming down, not just finance policy. Our government relations news that comes out to employees is really phenomenal. It's like an education course in itself. I think the leadership of Jamie, you know, we are giving people half day off for election day to vote. Jamie is always the first one to say he loves his country, his family, his country, and then his job. You know, I think that we really try to keep those practices that our leadership gives to us, you know, in mind. And I think some of our stands with women right now, with equal pay, with flexibility, and with Black and brown people are really making a difference. And I'm sure we're not liked by some, but our social media team is very, very careful with what we will put out there, how we listen to consumers across the globe. So I think it's just a combination of using data and really figuring out what the pulse is, and really, you know, having the ethics and morality within each of us as employees to stay away from issues that we know are controversial.
Totally, I get that. I think that's a well stated and well reasoned answer. You know, so let's talk for a second about your leadership skills and how they have, let's say, changed or morphed a little bit during the pandemic. I noticed you're in your bedroom. It's very nice and neat behind you.
Yes, I tried to get away from the bed. I made it though.
It tells me a lot about you. You don't keep like things all over the place. Very neat and clean. So now that you're dealing with people in a little bit different way, how has that changed the relationship with your colleagues, employees, et cetera? And how have you adjusted, and what have you found to be most effective?
Well, obviously, it's changed a lot. I mean, being a global organization, we always had lots of colleagues in different locations, and, you know, people on my team live in different cities. So it's not like I would see them every day at work. But I do think that the way our offices were structured with little conference rooms and the way we would be able to gather did increase maybe sometimes creativity or innovation or just like some off the cuff brainstorming. So it's been a challenge. And I have a young team, and I have children that are, you know, to me, young, 30 and 29. And I think that what I tried to do, and they could attest to it more than myself, but the team has given me great feedback about it, is I have just done a stand-up every single morning at 9:45 a.m. Eastern. And it is like, you just dial in, it's 15 minutes. There are times when we talk about work, but it's mostly about life. How was your weekend? What did you do? What's up? You know, like, and you just like, it's the water cooler talk. So I've tried to keep the water cooler talk going on to just feel that connection. I need it. And, you know, I can only imagine how, you know, some of the younger workforce needs it and wants it even more. So I've tried to keep that going. We've tried to do, and lots of teams have tried to do, happy hours and other kinds of Zoom events. You and I were talking about, I think Zoom has been a big help, because even with my colleagues in Ohio or California or London, I wouldn't always see them. I would talk with them on a conference call. And now I think we've gone to all Zoom in terms of all of our meetings. It's really rare when I just speak with somebody as opposed to see them face to face. And I think that there's a nice connection there. I think seeing the baby sitting on a mom's lap every now and then or her dad's lap, is always fun. And, you know, once in a blue moon, I'll get my 29-year-old to come in and wave, because I'm so proud of her, but, you know, not really.
Well,
I try to keep it real. I try to keep it.
Well, you refused to have a Zoom call with me yesterday, so I'm not going to take that as an offense.
You know where I was. I was on a boat. So
I'm only joking. I'm only joking. You know, you talked about, you know, having so much tech at your disposal. You know, during this period of pandemic, has technology been utilized by you or JP Morgan Chase to, let's say, enhance your capability to deal with this crisis?
Yes. I mean, we are a company that used to take a very long time to approve any new kind of tech platform. Zoom, it was out within a week when the pandemic started, you know, back in March. There's a lot of tools that they've been releasing for us, a lot of quicker approvals. I think it's remarkable how we haven't missed a beat. I mean, we really haven't missed a beat. I am so proud of the teams and the commercials we were able to develop, the creative animation that we changed to instead of using real people because we couldn't go and film, our social media strategy. I mean, I think that April, May, June was probably the hardest. I know it was the hardest I've ever worked in my life. Like, it was 24/7. And I think the whole marketing team, you know, was kind of spinning and just figuring out, how do we pivot to deliver to our customers what we need to deliver, let alone keep our community commitments. So I think technology has been very, very helpful for us.
Wow. I mean, so you touched on something that I think everyone's really interested in. And, you know, this is a question that's now starting to come in from the people listening. When you talk about production and media planning and media buying, you know, how has all of this affected those three things: production, planning, and buying?
Well, production, obviously, greatly, as I was saying. We do have an in-house creative team, but we also do use external agencies. We did just do a shoot with Kevin Hart where we didn't go, but a producer went. That was the first, I think, live shoot that we did again. So look for Kevin's commercial. A lot of Zoom productions, we've learned very quickly. I love the live like this, but a lot of pre-produced like productions, like Serena Williams and I never even thought of that. Jay Williams and Serena Williams, they're not related, but Jay Williams is our host for Chase Chats, and Serena did our Chase Chat in August. And that was like a pre-produced segment. So we've learned a lot about pre-producing segments. As far as media buying, Tracy Ann Lim, we're so lucky to have her. She's our head of media buying at the firm. Tracy Ann has been doing a whole different pivot strategy. We did a Show Me Your Walk graduation. I don't know if you caught that in May, but we did a graduation ceremony with historically Black universities and colleges, and had millions and millions of viewers with a social media campaign show us their walk and recognize graduates around the country. We did do a lot of social media buying on that. So I think increase in social, decrease in TV at the beginning. We did not want to seem deaf to what mass consumers are going through. And I think that's the message that we continue. We're not spending big bucks on things because money could be used a lot differently elsewhere. So.
Yes, yes. Oh, no doubt. So, do you have any predictions about what the industry is going to look like coming out of this and going into 2021? When I say coming out of this, I mean, I don't know exactly when we're coming out of this, but what does 2021 look like to you?
I certainly hope that 2021 looks like a year where we could start having smaller gatherings with all the proper protocols in place, but to be doing some of our in-person meetings and events again.
Yep.
We have a lot of sponsored properties. I named a few of them. I certainly hope that consumers get to take advantage of them. I hope that the 5,500 branches that we have across the country that are open continue to get visitors, and bankers continue to be able to offer the advice that they have. So I'm hoping that people get more comfortable with the new normal. Like I don't want to predict anything because my husband's an executive in healthcare and he scares the crap out of me, to be honest, about like how long this road could potentially be. But I do think that if we're careful and if we go by guidelines, there's probably ways that we could be doing that. I think social is going to be huge. I think influencer platforms on social media are going to continue to be the game changer to make us aware. And I certainly hope that our political leadership, no matter what happens in November, can really bring the country together. So,
yeah, I mean, you have your name on a big building in San Francisco,
sure do.
and you're waiting for people to populate that building.
We spent a lot of money for that building.
I know, and so you want people to get in there.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think that's going to affect that dramatically is the work that's being done, and your husband's probably aware of this, on rapid testing.
Yeah.
So one of the things they're hoping, and that's why the NBA is talking about maybe pushing the season back for next year, is that people can come to an arena, let's say, take a rapid test, and quickly know whether they test negative or positive. And if they're negative, they can enter the building, and hopefully there's protocol in place there to keep them as safe as possible. If they test positive, of course, they have to quarantine. But it's always taken a long time to get those tests back, so you can't really do that. But if you have rapid testing, you might be able to get people to come together a little bit more quickly than you did in the past. So I'm sure you're probably thinking about that too for your small events that you might be having.
Yeah, I mean, I read about the saliva test, if that's what you mean. I mean, that would be remarkable. I know my parents, like just as an aside, I haven't seen my parents since December. My dad's 90 and my mom's 85, and my daughter just had a baby. And I finally convinced them the fourth time that they're going to fly up here on the 13th. And I had to write them out a plan of how they're getting on an airplane, how they're going to have to test before they go. Then they're going to have to quarantine for 4 days. Then I'm going to get them to this rapid test center, just to make sure that they're safe and we're safe. And it's just, I feel like those are the protocols that we need a lot of help with our community organizations, to make sure that every person, not just those who have financial means, can afford these kinds of tests and start figuring out how to get their kids back to school and feel safe. So that's my hope for 21.
Totally. I mean, and one of the things I think we've seen in this whole pandemic is just how fragile things can be and how change is accelerated so much. Do you see organizations out there much more vulnerable, than they've ever been before, whether it's a sports organization? I mean, if you think about the major sports, I mean, NBA, look at what's happened to them. NFL, look at the challenges they're dealing with. US Open tennis tournament, even look at what they're dealing with. So, how do you see coming out of this the vulnerability that exists out there for those traditional sort of staples in the sports world, in the world of business, et cetera?
Yeah, no, I think that there are a lot of vulnerabilities. I mean, I know Frank Nakano, our head of sports and entertainment, who owns our work with the US Open, which we've sponsored for 39 years.
Wow.
I just saw a presentation. The Open starts this weekend, right? I hope the Open starts this weekend, like with Naomi's statement yesterday. Phew, I mean, some of these people are just being so brave with the stances that they're taking. But I did see a presentation, and where we used to have very exclusive suites. A line of businesses would get a suite. It would cost a ton of money. And I now see that we're going to be able to bring the US Open virtually to hundreds of thousands of more people than got to experience it at the US Open site. So, that might be a silver lining. Now, all the marketing strategies and engagement tactics that we're doing on social media and how we're getting people to want to attend, and the celebrities that we're bringing in to kind of entice them to participate in different ways. I think that's going to be interesting. So I'm not sure, but I do think that there are opportunities. It's just a matter of being creative and watching what our partners, what our other brands are doing for engagement that I think will really help yield good lessons for all of us.
Well, thank you. I see that David has sort of come on here to tell us that it's probably time for us to stop. But I've really enjoyed this conversation with you, Lois. I mean, again, congratulations on all these amazing things you've done. And now a lot of people understand for the first time, the power of what you do and how important and how great the work that you've been doing in the community. So congratulations to you on that. And I'll turn it back over to David if unless he has anything else for me to do.
Thank you, Leonard. And I look forward to seeing you one day in person.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, we are counting down the days until we can bring our community back together in the real world, in person. As soon as it's safe, I promise you, Brand Innovators will be there and bringing you guys together. Lois, thank you. Leonard, thank you. Leonard, I love I don't know if that's just your wall color or if you have a real green screen in your house, but I got to do that so I can get some virtual backgrounds here and have some fun. But this was phenomenal. Indeed, we got to wrap. That's why I have popped back in. I wish I could give you more time, but the best I can say is we'll have you back again soon.